Thank you, Josiah. It's been an excellent start to my Saturday. I've been on the road. I just got back from Richmond, Virginia last night. I've been participating in politics about full time for approximately 4 years now. And I got my start when I was about 8 years old, 9 years old. I was going to public school, and I told my dad, I said, the reason why I need these sack lunches every day is because the food is terrible at the school. I said, you wouldn't believe this, but there's more food in the trash containers than probably the kids are eating. They're throwing out more than they're eating. And my dad was kind of surprised by that. He said, well, the first thing you need to do is write a letter to the paper. And so I actually had a letter to the editor in 3rd grade that told the whole city that the food was horrible and that we needed to do something about it. And that'll get you sent to the principal's office the next day you go to school, like what I found out. And so I met with the superintendent of the cafeteria, and I guess she managed all the cafeterias across in the school system. And you know what? Just like most government groups, I complained, and nothing ever changed. So I ended up bringing sack lunches to school pretty much the rest of my career in public school. But anyways, I think more people need to do that. I mean, that's why I do what I do. I want to inspire others, encourage people. If you're in elementary school, you're not too young to write a letter to the editor to express your complaints, or to even express how that you're encouraged on what's happening. So it doesn't exactly have to be a complaint. You can be happy about something. Just let people know. But you need to do your best to let other people know what you're thinking. And that's what we're doing here today. Is we're expressing our thoughts. Which 4 years ago, when I moved to South Carolina, there weren't very many people talking about this stuff. And some of these ideas, I'm learning some of them for the first time today, to the depth that I am. This is the church that I was at. I'm going to grab my notes real quick. This is the church that I was at yesterday, and it's the St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia. It's a beautiful church. It's actually the church where Patrick Henry gave his famous speech. Has anybody been to this church before? You've been to that church? Okay. Well, it's a small church, but what I learned yesterday was that the church was often used for town council meetings. So they would hold the worship service, and then afterwards people would come by and participate in a political meeting afterwards. And I don't know if I know of a church like that in Spartanburg County where I live today, where they'll have a political meeting after the worship service, but that's just how it was done. So, but I just want to point out, when Patrick Henry gave his speech, it says up there, I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but if you see what's underlined, and the sentence there says, "It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and of an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly things." So he's a very godly man, and he was able to persuade a lot of people in that room. The lady that gave us the tour there, because there's a tour that you can take, and I was with a number of other John Birch Society coordinators. She said that the people in the room weren't that persuaded. Her belief is they weren't totally persuaded by Patrick Henry's speech. But there were so many people around the church looking in through the windows. And when they heard Patrick's speech, she said that they could hear this loud uproar, this loud applause. We have to support what Patrick Henry just said. And this is what I just gave you. The slide before was the first paragraph of the speech. I think there's about 10 paragraphs altogether. But this is the last paragraph. I'm going to read it. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of the chains of slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And if you can just imagine the loud applause outside the church and all these people who were there to make the decision of whether or not to go into this revolutionary war that they were getting themselves into. I hope all of you who haven't been to that church have an opportunity to, because it really it's great history for the United States of America. We're thankful. We should be thankful to be living here, because there's no other place like this in the world. And we do have a duty to God and to fellow Americans to maintain the liberty that we have, and to hopefully restore the republic to what we once had, and even make it better. Well, while I was driving yesterday, these two guys called me, and they said, I was driving back from Richmond, they said, how can we stop Josiah from holding this conference in Greenville or in Taylor's? And I said, Henry, you always call me on Friday. I'm done with work. I just want to listen to my music on the road and enjoy myself. And he said, I've got David Rothschild on the phone, though. The CFR honorary, chairman. I mean, we want to talk Josiah out of this conference. And I said, there's nothing you can do to talk Josiah out of this. He's made up his mind. He's gonna start instilling virtue into the upstate of South Carolina. He said, well, let me put somebody else on the line. I've got the Bushes on the phone. So we've got George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush, and George W. goes, Evan, what can I do for you? Anything to stop Josiah from instilling virtue in the area. We've got a plan, and the Virtue Solution Project could really stop it. And I said, I don't think there's much you can do to stop them. Well, then a call comes in from Russia. We had Vladimir Putin to the line. He goes, I've heard of this Josiah guy. We've got to stop the Virtue Solution Project. And I said, my goodness, let me guess, there's got to be somebody else. And Henry goes, well, one last guy on the line. If you allow this, if Josiah does this, it's going to put a major stop to our plan. And I said, yeah, but there's just really, I think there's no way to buy Josiah off. I mean, I think he's unbuyable at this point. And he said, well, Henry said, I can sign a book and send it there overnight, and it will be delivered to Josiah, and maybe he'll stop the meeting before it begins. And he said it's even endorsed by Hillary Clinton. And he said, she even said that my book makes a compelling case for why we have to do it and how we can succeed. And so, lastly, he said, I'm going to buy Josiah. I have a friend, and he's going to buy Josiah a giant mansion anywhere he wants, and he's going to get a big chunk of money every single year. It's my friend, the Prime Minister of China. And so I said, I don't think that'll do it. You can buy Josiah a mansion. You can give him a $200,000 salary every year to do nothing but to just sit there in the mansion. But I don't think this is going to stop him from doing his project. And so I cut him off. I said these guys who are trying to create this one world government. government. They want power and they want riches. And those who have read the gospel and understand what Jesus was talking about, this is a very bad route if you want to get to heaven. This Bible verse, I don't know if it'd do any good with those guys, but somebody should at least tell them that Jesus did say something you should be aware of. And I think Patricia Wheat had it right when she said that these guys are not doing, their plan is not for the glory of God. And most of us who have studied the United Nations have a really good understanding that when the meditation room is ran by the Lucis Trust, which is short for the Luciferian Trust, you've got to wonder what the United Nations. I don't have to wonder anymore what the United Nations is all about, but hopefully that piques your interest in understanding the United Nations is not a good organization. So those of us here, we're learning a lot about virtue and education. I know some of these points have already been hit upon, but we as people who now understand the message, I think a lot of us feel. I felt for a long time I have a duty to deliver the message. When I used to listen to Ron Paul's speeches, he would say at the end, now you have a duty to share the message. You have an obligation. And I think all of us here today have that obligation to share the message of this Virtue Solution Project to let other people know, hey, we do have a crystal clear plan of what could be done to revitalize our neighborhoods and restore them to what some of them once were, and to help stop, a lot of the bad things that are happening. We've got to do our best to seek students in the most critical places. And I was with the CEO of the John Birch Society yesterday, and he said to the group of us, me and a few others that have coordinator positions across the nation, he said what he used to do when he was just a chapter leader, I believe, was they had people come over their house on, I think, Saturday nights to watch films. And he says there would be so many people, it would be standing room only in his house to watch films that had been approved by the John Birch Society. He said so many people had signed up for the John Birch Society by doing these films inside of his house that he would run into people on the street and they would say, yeah, I'm a member, and I actually learned about the John Birch Society at your house. And Art would say, well, I don't think I've ever mentioned it before, but I guess you did. But that's what we have to do as good neighbors, is open our houses to people and allow people strangers to come into our house. That can be hard for a lot of people, but that's one of the most welcoming things you can do to others, to let them know that you're there for them. We've got to deliver. I'm going to hit on that one more time. When it comes to seeking students in the most critical places, I've got a DVD up here I'm going to show. This is a movie that was done about John Birch. So, we're that crazy radical group that actually wants our congressmen to obey the Constitution. So if you've heard anything else, that's the crazy radicalness going on at the John Birch Society. But John Birch was a Baptist missionary, and he went into China in the 1940s to deliver the gospel to people, and he loved it. He said the Chinese people very much loved the gospel, and he saved a lot of people there. And when he would write back to the fundamentalist newspaper, he would say, I want to go to the most critical areas of China to deliver the gospel, which meant during World War II that he went behind enemy lines to deliver the gospel, which he had dressed as a Chinese person, he had to look like one, and he could not be that public that he was an American in that area. And it's just a great story about him. But so many of us, we're not even delivering the message, the gospel, or delivering the messages, against communism as well, which I think the gospel and delivering the message against communism kind of go hand in hand. But John was going to a territory there's territories like that today, and we're just not doing. We don't have enough people. Well, there are missionaries that still do this the way he did, but he really set the example, and that's why John Birch became the namesake for the John Birch Society. During a constant struggle, how many people get back from a meeting where they're talking about these things and they feel like they've been working for 30 days straight and they need to take a couple of days off? I mean, these ideas are not easy to deliver. I mean, it's extremely important that we're faithful, that we have faith, because these are about the hardest messages you can deliver during the week, especially when you're speaking to people that just have very little understanding in these areas. I can't tell you how many pastors I've talked to about this, and then I've called them back a few days later to follow up, and they won't return my calls.
That's right.
And why? Here I am. I'm trying to do. I see the plan in place, and these pastors have their congregations and people that trust them. They're shepherds, to their flocks of people, and the fact that they won't even return my call when I'm trying to do something that is extremely beneficial to them, just kind of, it bothers me. But at the same time, I just realize that's how backwards things are right now. Right. To where you won't even get a call back from pastors sometimes. Okay, so when it comes to political education, there's a lot of books to choose from. I'm going to pull up a few here real quick. Does everybody know who G. Edward Griffin is? Does anybody know who G. Edward Griffin is? Okay. Everybody should know who G. Edward Griffin is. He wrote an excellent book called The Creature of Jekyll Island.
Very good.
Exposed the Federal Reserve Bank and exposed the people who helped start it. He's a hero of mine, and this is a thick book. If you can actually go to a bookstore or order it online, the CD to this book, and it's a great listen. I'd highly recommend that you can go on YouTube and actually listen to a speech that he gives about the book. I'm going to keep talking about G. Edward Griffin. How many people have heard of the book The World Without Cancer? Okay. So how many people know somebody in their neighborhood that's sick, that has cancer? Yeah, I run into people as I travel, because my job is to meet new people across the state. I run into people all the time that have a neighbor that has cancer or some in their family. Well, G. Edward Griffin wrote the story about vitamin B17, and the John Birch Society actually helped to spread this message, I think, back in the early 1990s or sometime in the 1980s. But he basically, tells in the book that the toughest problem to solve is not the problem of cancer. That's not the toughest problem. The toughest problem to solve is the politics of cancer, because there's so many different groups that make money off of it. It's not really they're not really trying to. A lot of them aren't trying to find the cure. He talks about in the book, and he makes a pretty good case for the fact that the oil that's in these apricot seeds is called B17. There's another name for it that I think it's called amygdalin is what he calls it. But people who have had cancer have just eaten apricot seeds. Some of them get it directly injected, the oil from these seeds directly into their body, and they've no longer had cancer. And then there's been people that have. There's one person in particular, I think his name's Jason, who used these apricot seeds and no longer had cancer. And then he started selling them in his community to try to help others with cancer. Well, the FDA, put him in jail for about 5 years because he told other people that the apricot seeds cured his cancer. Now where were the good neighbors in his community stopping the FDA from doing this? I mean, would you stand up for your neighbor if the FDA was going to put him in jail for telling people how he cured his cancer? It's crazy, isn't it? I think a lot of times we overlook kids in our society and educating them. There's so many great books, but it's just above their reading level. These books by Connor Boyack are excellent. If you like The Law by Frederick Bastiat, this is a kid's book, The Law by Frederick Bastiat. If I had $1 million, I would probably put a good chunk of that in buying this book and giving it to kids in my neighborhood. Because if they get started on that book, they're going to have a good understanding of what virtue is and how to be a virtuous person, especially with local government. The Creature of Jekyll Island is another one, so he pretty much condenses. I mean, it's a kid's story, so it's way different, but it pretty much gives the kids' version of the story in there. I highly recommend any of these 3 books. If you want to meet with me afterwards, I'll be glad to show you these books. I know there's been a lot of talk about the myth of Darwinism. A Tornado in a Junkyard is written by James Perloff. Excellent book about the myth of Darwinism. That's another book that I have in my vehicle usually. I sell these books as I travel across the state because the key is we want to increase the depth of knowledge for people so that they can make these arguments. I mean, we're bombarded by truths that aren't truths, as Roy pointed out. And so we have to be able to explain these to people because in a way that where they can actually believe that we're the most credible person, to listen to about these subjects. So there's some books. I have more. I'm not going to show all of them because I'm limited on time. The movie Shattering is actually a book. It's based on the book Shadows of Power, and which is written by the same guy who wrote this. But this movie is an excellent movie to give away to neighbors, or if you want to hold a movie night at your house and invite your neighbors. This helps people understand that there are these people that are trying to orchestrate this global one world plan to make it to where we're going to have a very difficult time creating these good neighborhoods like we're proposing. So that's why on one hand, people here, there may be somebody here that goes, why are you scaring people? These are scary things to think about. But on my side, I want you to understand that we have a limited time to do these things. And so how much longer do we want to wait? And I don't have, I didn't have it set up on that computer, but I was going to show a website. Can you pull up Google real quick? Okay, I'm sorry. But the CEO of the John Birch Society, Art Thompson, wanted to explain this to us at the meeting we had there in Richmond, Virginia. And there is a large amount of companies being purchased across the United States by the Chinese. And Chinese people don't own their businesses like we do here, usually. I mean, these are really businesses that are owned by the People's, I think it's called the People's, is it called the People's Liberation Army? Is that the People's Liberation Army of China? So when you see, if we can get connected to the internet. Okay. When you get to Google, just Google Chinese Investment Monitor. Okay. But he hit on something that I think is very important, though, I want to be sharing this. But Patricia Wheat was right when she talked about the small business owners and how they really make the community. What happens when mid-sized businesses and large businesses are owned by the People's Liberation Army of China. I mean, what happens to the community at this point? I often say, people, when I travel across the state, they go, oh, how great it must be to have BMW, providing jobs to people in Spartanburg County. And I say, I don't know one person that works at BMW that actively, well, I think I know one person, but I don't know more than one person that actively participates in politics in Spartanburg County. And, okay, China Investment Monitor. And it was always, as Patricia kind of pointed out, it was always the small business, it was usually the small business people that participated in local politics. And
go ahead and click on that link, yeah, right there.
So I'm going to show you the timeline here. Can you make that map bigger so people can see it? Okay. Okay. So back in 2000, this is how many companies, and this is actually a map that was created by two members of the CFR, the Council of Foreign Relations. They use this website to boast about how well their plan's working to increase the number of businesses in the United States that are owned by the Chinese. And so this is the year 2000. As you can see, there's very few businesses that are owned by the People's Liberation Army of China. And if you expand that to 2015,
Go down.
oh, no, go back up. The scroll bar is not right. Right here. Move it over there. So that's how many companies that are significant. I don't think they're buying small businesses, as I'll tell you that. I think these are mid to large, extremely big businesses. So what the CEO of my organization told us, he said that China which is communist China, is buying up the United States. And we're allowing this to happen unless our congressmen take action very quickly. And he said what they don't even include in this is how the Chinese are buying radio stations, local TV groups. And they're basically going to you think we have propaganda now, just wait until they own the TV stations and radio groups. And so there's never been a more important time for you to get to know your neighbors and to invite them over to your house and do exactly what Josiah is talking about and what everybody else here is talking about, because there's very limited time to actually fix these problems. But I think right now, if we can bring more people in to see these presentations, it's just so obvious at this point what's happening, that we should be able to get hundreds of people, hopefully thousands of people, to take action and stop this from taking away our freedom and liberty. I've got something I want to give to Josiah. We all take these things way too seriously, so I just want to make everybody laugh a little bit. So this has a picture of Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, and George Washington. I hope it's the right size, but it says "Who's your daddy?" And we all know that's a shirt you wear like on Friday or Saturday night. It's not a serious shirt, but anyways, thanks everybody for listening.